right. Well, today I have Kristina Ellis with me, CrossTown Learning Center.
That's
so tell us, what's your favorite story about CrossTown Learning Center?
Favorite story. So I like to find a favorite moment every day at CrossTown, and there's a lot of good moments. You can't work in childcare, and it's such a stressful job that you have to find good moments in it.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell you today's favorite moment.
I like.
Okay, so we're a little short-staffed. Plug for teachers if you're looking for a job. But so I'm doing some breaks in the classroom, making sure the teacher's mental health is okay. So we go in as administrators and we're supporting the kiddos. And since it's been so nice outside this week, we're spending as much time outside as possible.
Okay.
And so I'm in a toddler class, so you've got some little 1-year-olds and 2-year-olds all toddling outside. And I notice when we're outside that another classroom is pulling up their shades and all of the toddlers run to it. So I asked the teacher that's with me, I go, what's going on? And she said, well, sometimes the infant teachers will raise the shades and they'll come show the babies to the toddlers. So you had this perfect little row of little guys in an infant aquarium, just like the infants coming over to the glass. And I just thought about the community, because with age groups you're separated because you don't want a toddler with an itty bitty baby, but they sort of crave that. Toddlers, they have baby dolls for a reason. They're very nourishing. And so they love seeing the babies. The babies want to be like the toddlers. They love seeing them. And it was just this really cute moment of the toddlers lined up watching the baby aquarium. Okay. So that was today's
baby aquarium. I love
best memory today.
Okay, I love that. And it is, I love the practice of just, okay, what is today?
That's right.
What could we, there's chaos, but there's also, with kids, there's chaos and there's joy, there's delight,
That's
all that
right.
sort of stuff. So. As we continue talking about education, I'm really interested to hear about what's going on with our little ones. And so Kristina Ellis is going to be sharing with us, as you can tell, about what is the importance of early childhood education, what do they do at CrossTown Learning Center, and what makes them unique. And then you're going to hear some of her own story. Again, it's a fascinating story about how she started here, some of the journey that she went on, and then what brought her back to Tulsa as well. And so it's just fascinating to hear her story. Also in here, we talk a little bit about kind of this looming childcare crisis because of some changes in subsidy and funding that I didn't know about, but it's facing our state, it's facing our city, and you'll want to hear about it in this interview that we had and this conversation we have with Kristina Ellis. So let's talk about CrossTown Learning Center. What makes it unique? What's kind of a little bit of the background, and why is it different than maybe just other preschools or daycares or other such stuff in town?
Yeah, so CrossTown Learning Center, we're a nonprofit. We've been in the community since 1969.
Okay.
So we're in our third location right now. Our first location was a church off of Lewis in the Kendall Whittier North neighborhood. And it started religiously affiliated, where there was an unfortunate incident in the neighborhood where a child was unsafe. So the women of the church said, let's make this a safe community space for children to go to during the day. So all the way back in 1969, they had a Mother's Day Out program.
That's really cool.
And so the community kids came to the church. I actually attended as a child.
Oh,
that
wow.
was my neighborhood church.
Okay.
I have fond memories of roller skating in the basement there.
Okay.
And then we became a 501c3 nonprofit in, I believe, 2000.
Okay.
And we moved to a new location, which was a church on the other side of Lewis in the same neighborhood. And like we talked about before, the church wasn't really conducive for a child care environment, walking up 3 flights of stairs, having to put an elevator in, administration on the other side, past a big gymnasium. And so they said, let's build a building for children and for staff.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. So our new location, and hopefully we'll be there for a very long time, opened up in 2017.
Okay.
Did a great capital campaign for that. My predecessors did. And so we've been there since then. I started in April 2024, so I'm coming up on my second year in April as the executive director there. So we serve 90 children right now. It's 6 weeks to 5 years. And we have 9 operating classrooms, and our sort of secret sauce, what makes us unique, is we're a mixed income program. And so we reserve about 70 to 75% of our spots for children who are on some sort of subsidy. That could be state subsidy, that can be tribal subsidy, and then the remaining spots or for those who are private pay. And what we have found is our private pay parents, those are your local teachers, your local business owners, your folks who work in the nonprofit community, who work in the businesses in the Kendall Whittier neighborhood. And then we also are unique in our location just right off of the highway. So folks going into downtown to work, it makes it really nice. So while the majority of our children are from the neighborhood in the 3 zip codes around our building, we're really spread out and represent all of Tulsa and the surrounding communities. But there's something about putting communities together who normally wouldn't be together, learning from each other, growing together, because that's life, right? That's what you're going to see is whenever you're in elementary school and as your schools get larger, you're going to be surrounded by different populations when you go to school, whenever you're in a job. And it's important to sort of leverage all those relationships, build your empathy. So that's sort of what our secret sauce is at CrossTown, is our mixed income. Everyone there receives tuition assistance. You know, I know later we're going to talk about challenges, and a big challenge is the cost of child care. Anyone who's listening who has children, they know that. It's no sort of secret that these costs keep rising, but the child care community is also trying to raise our level of professionalism and trying to find that balance of high quality and the cost that is, and not having that full cost burden go to the families who really need it to be able to stay working and be a good employee. If you know your children are safe in a loving environment, you're going to be a better employee, and that's going to help the businesses and the economy. It's really, childcare is the foundation of any community.
Well, I have lots of directions I can go. So, but I do look forward to talking about that, about like why is childcare so expensive? Why should it maybe cost more? Why, what could be done to be done? What do people need to know? Because it is different than it was 30 years ago and 50 years ago, and the workforce is different. But
it's different than whenever I was just roller skating in the basement of a church. It's a lot different.
And then obviously, like I think of, like so many families, both partners have to work, or they're single parents or grandparents being raised, that these income challenges are there. But I do love this idea of kind of this diverse world. So when my wife and we were out in Broken Arrow when our oldest started kindergarten out there. And then we wanted to come to Tulsa, so we moved to Tulsa. And the church I was at the time was a different church than this. They had a connection with Eugene Field Elementary. And we just really sense we think our kids are going to be in a world in which they're going to work with people who have all sorts of different backgrounds. They're going to we want them to have friends with people who look different than them, come from different situations, that they don't see somebody as that sort of stuff. So that intentionality of being a part of a diverse neighborhood as an educational sort of thing, I think is really good. So for you all to be intentional about that, whether it be tribal assistance or other sort of subsidies there. So 5 days a week?
That's right. We are a full-time program for working parents. Parents' jobs are 8 to 9 hours a day, so we need to be open 10 and a half hours a day to make sure, and we need to be open as many days of the year as possible. I'm sure if my teaching staff were listening, they would say, we could probably be off a little bit more than we are, but they know that it's important for families to have a place where they can take their kids. You know, last week there were really bad storms in the Tulsa area and the surrounding communities, and we were just closed one day. We had reduced hours the rest of the time, but more than 50% of our families were there, which let us know they needed us. They had jobs where they needed to be where they are. They were nurses, or in the service industry, or just in a job where they didn't have any more PTO, even though it's the beginning of the year, or they're reserving that for a mental health break that they might need later on in the year.
Yeah.
So it's important that we're available for families.
So you got, what time do y'all open?
7 in the morning until 5:30 at night, Monday through Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do y'all do you have like a lunch provided? Do they bring their own lunch?
We provide a breakfast, lunch, and a snack. Miss Susan and Tisha in the kitchen make sure that we are well fed. Today was pork chops and potatoes au gratin.
Okay.
So the kids are, the things that we don't provide for families are diapers, and a lot of our families, even our private pay families, struggle with that because there's rules and guidelines for everything in childcare.
Okay.
And so we have to change and check their diaper very often. Sometimes they're like, "Are you sure you need to change them that often?" I am going through diapers. So then we offer assistance in a couple of different ways that we can. But diapers are the only thing that we don't provide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's so yeah, because you're kind of DHS or OHS, whatever the DHS facility, you have all of these regulations that you have to follow.
We do.
What is something that just is seemingly ridiculous to me? What would I find seemingly ridiculous? I mean, there's a reason why it exists, right?
Yeah.
Sure. But it's like, oh my goodness, this seems like crazy. And what is something that, on the other hand, like this is actually something that's really good and really helpful and maybe a pain, but I'm really glad that this is required.
You know, something that I think parents would find really interesting is, of all things, diaper changing. You have children, you change diapers, you do it, and you get into a rhythm of it. Our diaper changing is like a 13-step thing that you have to do. And then the cleaning of the diaper too, of the diaper pad, are so many steps, and you have to do it in order. But it's there for, of course, safety reasons, because we're changing multiple diapers. Kids are getting sick. It's not just your child. But it's always so interesting to see the diaper, because one of the regulations is you have to put a poster up of how to change a diaper, because there's so many steps to changing a diaper that you will forget all of the said steps. So we literally have to have a poster that says, this is how you change a diaper in the classroom. And I always just found that so interesting that whenever we are audited, they're literally watching for all of those steps. And then one thing that we do, it's not required by DHS, but we're also NACCE accredited, which is an accrediting body that's national. It's the highest level of accreditation, is in our infant rooms, you either have to have shoes that are only for that classroom, put booties on, or go barefoot. And it's not required by DHS, but we do it because you drag in so much stuff on your shoes, and those littles, they put everything under the sun in their mouths. And so we do that to keep that floor just extra clean in there. And so that's a good one to have. And there's a lot of, there's no room for imperfection in childcare, because you're expecting your child to come back better than whenever you left them. We do tell parents they're going to come back dirtier. Don't expect clean clothes. Especially the toddlers, they like to toddle a lot. So sometimes they get a little dinged up, playing with their friends. But it's all there for safety reasons. But we really are expected to be perfect in childcare. I think about nursing, right? You don't want the C-level nurse providing you care, and it's the same thing in childcare. You really want to be on your A game all the time. So, yeah.
I had a friend who was on the school board of another district, and he said, we have everybody who calls us, they have one, they have a number one.
That's right.
And then there's everybody, and so, that's the same way it is with parents. It's like, there's a number one. What have you done for my kid today?
That's right.
And they should, as parents, advocate for their children. Sometimes as parents, we can not advocate in the most helpful of ways, but I'm sure that would be okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I need my kid to be safe. I need my kid to be, well fed, to be
Yeah.
clean, the
Yes.
things that need to be clean are clean.
Yes.
To be able to do that. So
We do a lot of this time of the year wiping off the noses, because at the end of the day, they're just sort of covered in. And I was was like, do I have any crusties on my shirt today? Because I was in a classroom. But it is. We try to make sure we give them back, a little bit better than what they were dropped off as. And I think it's about building a relationship with that family, especially very early on. I know as kids get older, it's a little bit difficult because there's more of a divider between the school and the parent. You sort of send them off on the bus or you drop them off, and good luck. We'll talk to you later. But in childcare, you come into the building. You ask me questions. We tell you about their day. We tell you what they ate. We tell you their bowel movements throughout the day. All that's written down on a piece of paper. And so we very quickly build a relationship with families, because that's going to be the difference of whenever we have to call and say, there's been a biting accident, and the parents always say, were they the biter or the bitey? Because, how am I going to react to this one? And so we do a lot of supporting the families just as much as we're doing supporting the children, because they're new at this too. And what do I do if my kid's the child biting? What do I do? How should I react if this is the second time my child's been bitten? And we do a lot of support with them, and so we have to build that relationship very early on with parents, so there's trust there, so we can have difficult conversations if we need to have them.
Yeah. Well, there's no parents like preschool parents.
That's right.
There's no first time preschool parents.
Yeah, I was going to say first time. Yeah.
I remember I had my son. I was in Kentucky going to school, and then I worked at a restaurant, and so I had I was working as a server, and very, very cared about all the cleanliness and everything. And so there was this family that came in, his mom, and she had, a couple kids, and then there was one that she was holding who had a pacifier, and he dropped the pacifier, and I was like, I picked it up, and I was like, I'm gonna go run this under hot water for you, and she's like, oh, honey, this is kid number 4.
That's right. Yep. Like it's helping build their tolerance to germs. They're not gonna be sick. It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
So it's so funny just those first time parents. And so what would be some things that just dealing with these parents and with these kids, what are some of the trends that you're seeing about things that are causing anxiety or challenges for our families? Let's not go with the financial stuff yet, but just those other sort of like, what are the things that you guys are talking about that, again, because I'm not in those rooms and in those conversations all the time, that I'm not hearing?
Yeah, well, I had a conversation here recently with the executive director of the National Head Start Association. She works with a lot of Head Starts, and she wanted to know from sort of the child care perspective if we were seeing the same thing that they're seeing in Head Start as it relates to parents, more sort of involvement at different levels of with parents, more of before having a conversation with a teacher, sort of going directly maybe to a subsidy folk, or going directly to the board, or going directly to an administrator, sort of skipping over the one-on-one conversation with the teacher. And so but she took it more of the perspective of a concern of the mental health of the family members. Are we seeing that our families are so stressed out that by the time they get to us and we say, today this happened, that it's been too much? And how are we supporting these families in understanding child development, understanding their role as an advocate, and how are we truly sort of supporting them? In the Head Start world, they have family advocates that's sort of baked into the program. We're not Head Start funded, but we also see the importance of that. And so we have a family advocate too, to be able to support that role. But you're not going to see that in every child care program out there. More than likely, it's not available unless it's a Head Start program. And there's, and that's a concern of, are our families getting the full support they need to be able to be there for their children?
Okay.
And so that's a trend that I'm seeing there, is just an overall just frustration with the world in general. And then how does that come out when it's coming to your children and feeling like, because we're having a conversation about something that happened in the classroom today doesn't mean that you're a bad parent or that your child is a bad child. And don't get wrapped up into that, and let's not label the children that's going to carry them through elementary school and beyond. Let's sort of take a breath and see what we can do to work together. What are you doing at home? How much screen time are kids getting at this age? How much screen time are you taking in while they're, at home? Those kinds of things. Those are the conversations that we're having, and some trends. We're seeing some trends in increased behaviors that concern us as adults. There's been this sort of trend in changing the language around behavior with children. It used to sort of be children with behavior concerns. Now it's behavior that is concerning for us, because maybe as the professionals, we aren't getting the training that we need, or taking care of our own selves, that the sort of stress level that we have as adults, that behavior is just sort of putting us over the edge as well. And so how are we responding to the behaviors that are concerning to us? Because a child's not concerned about it.
No.
They're not concerned about it. And being careful of labeling children, especially at such a young age that we work with, and what is the training that they're getting before these teachers come to us to work with children from different backgrounds.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's, again, so there's this general stress level that
right.
seems to be elevated, and when we're more on stress, then a small thing becomes a big thing fast.
That's
and so
right.
it's like, it's not just like, hey, let me talk to the teacher. It's, you're the problem, or I'm gonna blame you, or go straight to the administrator or the board or whatever the case may be, because I just don't have the margin to be able to have a regular conversation.
And these are high responsibility jobs. I do a lot of comparison to sort of nursing in a way in childcare. These are very high stress, very high accountability jobs that these teachers have, these professionals have. And whenever the world is, stressing you out, whenever the cost of groceries are so high, and then you've got to come to work and have a child throw a chair at you. We're seeing, like in a lot of industries, just an exodus of teachers leaving the field, but we're not seeing enough coming into the field. So if I'm a high school counselor and someone comes to me and says, I'm interested in a job that can be paid well and I could have a good work-life balance, I don't know if they're recommending early child care so much in that space. And so making sure that we have a good group of folks coming in, and that they really see it as a profession that they could be a part of and have a good living being this professional as well.
Yeah. So, okay, so one of the kind of, as we think about early childhood, you said Head Start.
That's right.
So there, I'm going to build categories that may or may not exist, so correct me. There's kind of a Head Start, which is a government organization, government funded, locally ran sort of thing?
That's right.
Okay. There's child care centers like yours, child care all day while parents work. There's preschool, so that's what we have at our church, is a Monday, Wednesday, Friday preschool. Yes. Am I missing any other kind of like big boat?
Yeah.
Okay,
so
what else is there?
There's a couple of things. You're going to have your Mother's Day out programs that might be similar to what we're running here, is your drop-in care. Families have all sorts of needs. Sometimes their needs are overnight. So there's even some that are overnight care, some that are drop-in, like, I need to get groceries done. Can they come be there for 2 hours? Then there is home day care. And in Oklahoma, we have really been, that sort of was like the start of childcare, is home daycare, right?
Yeah.
And so really making sure that our home child cares are supported. We're really fortunate in Tulsa specifically to have as many educares that we have, and Educare has really been holding the torch and really saying the importance of home childcare. So we have seen an increase in that. And so that is, if you're not familiar, that is whenever the children are in a home care setting.
Okay.
There's also for-profit and nonprofit.
Okay.
So, for example, we're a nonprofit, but most of your child care, whenever people think of child care programs, are going to be your for-profit child care.
Okay. Okay. So yeah.
And center-based.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I will say, this is just the world I haven't thought a lot about. And my kids are now 16 and 13.
Yeah.
So, and they just always went to the preschool we had at the church, and
Yeah.
just manage. I have a flexible job. My wife, I mean, with my wife, she was able to be flexible. So I mean, there was always, it's amazing. I just tell people when they're like, kids graduate, like parents should be really proud, and I want to hand them a certificate like that says you handled 18 years of logistics. Well done. They got to where they were supposed to be most of the time on time. So I'm re-entering back into this world, and I mean. Okay, so going back, I don't know the history, but you used to be first grade, and then we said, oh, we need kindergarten, then pre-K. Why does early childhood, why does this kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 age 5-year-olds matter? What are we teaching them that they really need to know, and what are some of those, like, what does success look like?
Yeah.
And how what do you all look for to say we're doing our job with a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old?
Yeah. So the first 3 years of the life of anyone is the most important. That's where your brain is developing the most. So a lot of the things are happening within those first 3 years. And we think of a lot about social emotional happening in that time frame. So whenever we are getting children ready for kindergarten, so ready to be able to control their emotions and learn how to socialize with each other. So whenever they are in that school setting, that's whenever the teacher can then start teaching them to read so they can read to learn in the other grades. And so we're really setting that foundation. So an example of that would look like whenever you have a young child, they do a lot of independent play at first. And that is, I like this, I'm going to play with this. And then we see them transition into parallel play where you can sit next to me, I've got this, and you've got this, and we're playing next to each other. And then we start seeing group play. Now I've got my 2 cars. What do these 2 cars do with each other? And now you've taken my car. How am I going to respond that you just took my car and I wanted my car? And so helping them find their voice, use their voice, know what the sort of expected reaction is to that, and to appropriately sort of, get in there and redirect them to another space if they're not able to manage that. So we're doing a lot of those things where we're teaching them how to manage those emotions. And then we start getting into math, pre-literacy. They're doing things like patterns, which is going to be pre-math, is whenever we're at the block center and the blocks are multicolored, they're putting it together, but we're talking to them about, is this a tall building or a short building? And so we're giving them the language, and then this is yellow, red, blue. Can you do this and make a pattern with it and do red, yellow, and blue? And then, of course, there's the physical part of it, going from the fine motor, using paint brushes, to more of the gross motor. We have a play with purpose room, and so they're doing things like gymnastics in that room. Learning, they're literally learning how to walk and potty training at this age. And, it's important to learn how to be potty trained before you get to elementary school. And so that's what success looks like for us. We do assessments, they're called ASQ, Ages and Stages Questionnaire, to make sure that they are tracking on these key milestones. And then we also do one that's a social emotional one, and we work with the families. And we have some early detections that way of where we can talk to the family and say, here's some things to work at home. This is what we're working on here. And if we don't see progression, because that's really what we're looking for, is progression. Because every child is going to be on their own timeline for everything. But we want to see that there's been progression in whatever that they're working on. And that's what success looks like for each individual child, is that they are progressing and whenever it comes to the family, that they understand their role as an advocate. So whenever they do leave, that continues on until the elementary phase. You know, you mentioned earlier it was first grade and then kindergarten. Now we're seeing pre-K, and then we're seeing 3-year-olds in the public school as well. So that's really changing the dynamic for early child care, because we used to be 0 to 5, and then the public schools were doing more of the 5-year-olds, and there was this sort of if they're going to learn, they need to be in the elementary school. And so there was a shift there. And then now we're seeing that happen with 3-year-olds as well. And my sort of personal thought on that is there's plenty of children who need a variety of different options that's best for them. But so let's make sure we're working together. Let's make sure that the public school can lean on this rich history and expertise of the early childhood community and really support what they're doing in their classrooms. And so it's sort of not like a watered down first grade curriculum, that we're really pushing our expertise up, because it's going to happen whether we want it to or not. But it does change the dynamic in early childhood. So much of early child care relies on those older kids to help supplement the younger kids financially, because your ratios are different. And so the more that you see the older children leave the programs, the more closings that you see, because it's no longer financially viable to have just babies.
Okay, because in the baby room, is it 1 to 4?
So it is 1 to 4, and we have a max of 8 in our program. We do NACI ratios, which are going to be a little bit different than the DHS licensing ratios. But I think for infants, it's the same. Okay.
So yeah, there is that. I hadn't thought about that dynamic of just from a scale of pay and just income and what you have to have staffing wise and all that kind of thing. That's fascinating.
You know, since November, 400 childcare programs in Oklahoma have closed. So that's a lot.
That is a lot. Why?
So a few months ago, our state subsidy changed their guidelines for the school-age program. So they're no longer funding new school-age children. School age is ages 6 to 12. And you might think, how is that connected with 0 to 5? And I'll tell you here in a little bit. So they're stopping new children, and then as your subsidy expires, they're slowly taking people off. Our state is in a deficit, and so they're cutting back on that. A lot of childcare programs relied on that subsidy income. They would have aftercare after school. They would bus the children, if you see the childcare vans going around town, and that would help subsidize their full day program. And without that subsidy anymore, and then of course the children not having a place to go that's safe. And that's the thing that's important too, is where are these 6-year-olds going after school now? And so I'll be curious to see over the next couple of months and years what that looks like for our communities with children not having that aftercare program.
Okay, so let me try to make sure I'm understanding what's happening. So in November, because we're in a deficit, they cut the subsidies to these kind of aftercare programs.
That's right.
400 child care centers across the state of Oklahoma have closed since then, all over the state. So there may be some in Tulsa, some in Edmond, some McAllister, wherever.
That's right.
Certainly it's affecting us here, I'm sure. And so now there was a first grader and a third grade siblings who they would have gotten on a van and would have gone to some child care center.
That's right.
And now they are riding a bus and maybe home by themselves. Maybe mom or dad had to stop working. Maybe grandma next door is taking care of it. Maybe mom and dad are paying for it now, and they're working extra jobs to be able to pay for it so that they can still go to aftercare. I'm just imagining those are the options, right?
That's right. And since it just started, the ones who are currently on it, it's sort of out of sight, out of mind. So it's not impacting today. And so I've got 6 months to think about it and what we're going to do. And then there's obviously a lot of advocating going on right now. And I think the hope is, are we able to get this back? What are we at a level 10 worry? Are we at a level 5? I think childcare providers are already at level 10. I think parents as a whole, because they're not impacted just yet, only if you're a new parent coming in. I think it's out of sight, out of mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, this is the first I've heard about that. And yeah, I'm just thinking from, the number of kids. And I know, like, I mean, various churches used to do kind of after school kind of things, and a lot of those, I mean, that isn't something they do, but it makes me think, who fills the gaps if these gaps still kind of exist, and what does all that mean? Because it would be, again, right now my kid's old enough, they go home and we're not home and everything, they're fine, they're able to handle that. But, of course, there was the whole latchkey, generation kind of thing. But I just think, connection and community, and I do think, kids need that, and so I'm really curious.
Yeah, not every kid can go home to a safe environment to be alone to, or does your bus drop you off right in front of your home, or does it drop you off at the corner? Are you dropped at an apartment complex? And, I think of like a 6-year-old being responsible, or a 5-year-old being responsible for a key to their home, and getting there, and but like you said, that's putting the families in the situation of having to think, okay, where do I go? Is there a grandma I can call? Is there someone in the neighborhood who's going to be able to pick that up? And is it going to be safe for the children?
Yeah. I mean, and that's, I was talking with Daryl, and he works with the Tulsa Dream Center, and I know they do a big thing after school wise, and just giving those people a chance, and then also to be able to provide, those parents an opportunity to work, to generate income, to be good for business and development. There's just this child care piece is so key, but yet so expensive.
Yes.
So now, because you have, what would be if somebody was just what does private pay-ish look like for you all, a week or a month, or however you all classify it?
It depends on the age group.
Okay.
And so a month, and we are sort of the middle low end.
Okay.
Because again, we want to be affordable for our families. Everyone receives tuition assistance. It's I think between about $1,000 and $1,500 a month.
Okay.
For one child. And however, that covers between 60 to 70% of the true cost of child care, depending on the age group. So subsidy, we receive less money for children who are on subsidy, so we're covering more of that through our tuition assistance. But if we were to put the full cost onto the family, I mean, $2,000 a month is not sustainable. And if you've got 2 children,
Yeah, I mean, so if you're thinking $2,000 a month, and then 12 months a year.
That's right.
You got to work 12 months a year.
That's right.
That's $24,000. That's $24,000. You have 2 kids. I mean, it just multiplies very quickly. And then, I mean, then parents are thinking, well, what's the point of even working? And obviously, like, I mean, I'm a fan of people, being with your kids as much as you can. That's great.
Right.
But I mean, the reality is of work and jobs and I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that goes into it.
There's so many different families, and there's not going to be a one size fits all.
Okay. Yeah.
And we really see ourselves as filling that gap for families. We'll have a family who's on subsidy and they make $100 more than subsidy, but they can't afford obviously the $1,000 payment that would be required if you were to go off subsidy. So you hear the stories of families declining a raise because that would kick them off of their benefits, and the raise isn't enough to be able to pay for that. Families who are car being broke down from not being able to make their child care payment. They are working families who are sometimes living paycheck to paycheck, who don't receive subsidy support. And then you also have our families on subsidy who they are struggling in their own right to be able to meet these things. Even our subsidy families bring in their own diapers and everything too.
Okay. So yeah, then that cost is even greater in that way. Now you told me something I had not. Again, another thing I hadn't heard of was if somebody works at a child care place, then the state will pay for their child care.
Tell me
what I kind of remember.
Yeah, it just started, and it's through the Oklahoma Partnership for School Readiness, OPSR, and they have a partnership with the state. And if you work in child care, it's incentive to get folks back into the child care field. If you are working in childcare, you can get your childcare covered at no cost through this program. And we were doing half. If you were a childcare employee and you weren't on subsidy, you had a 50% discount, which is phenomenal. But I have a staff member who's getting ready to have 3 kids in our program, or no, just 2, because the third one's already gone to elementary school. But 2 kids in our program, even at 50%, and they're both in the education space. Her and her husband are in the education space. And so we, the Child Care Center has to be a certified program in it, an application for that, which we put ours in and we're approved. And then the family member has to apply for DHS, be denied DHS, and then they can receive money through OPSR. So it's a brand new program. I'm hoping it gets people excited if they've got young people to come back to the field, to be a teacher, to know that you have your children in a safe space with you. And so far we have 3 of our teachers who all 3 have applied, and 1 so far has been approved. So we're just waiting on the approval. It's a very new program, and I'm sure they got lots of applications in, so they're working out all of tweaking everything on that. But so far, I think it's a great thing for our state to have.
That is great, and incentivizing people to be in that educational space. And you said professionals, and that's a word you used several times.
That's right.
So your staff, I mean, so you've got, I'm making assumptions, help me out. I'm assuming it's some sort of lead teacher that has some sort of qualifications, credential, or whatever it might be. I'm assuming you have other sort of additional staff that's in there. What does that staffing structure look like, and what are the credentials or qualifications that you're looking for, or you'd love to have, or you already do have in your classrooms?
There's a couple of different ways to do staffing in childcare. Sometimes you'll have a lead and assistant. We do what's called co-teaching, and the separation is by pay, sort of behind the scenes. So in the classroom, if you were walking in, this is clearly the lead teacher, this is the assistant teacher, they're both co-teaching. And then their pay is determined based off of their certifications and credentials. And so that's how we structure ours. So you can come in at a CDA, which is a Child Development Associate. You could come in with
like a TCC kind of thing?
Yes, that's right. And you can come in without that, and then we help you get it. So we have a couple of teachers who are in the process taking classes, and then we encourage them to continue to get their professional development, whether that be through formal training or through informal training or going back to school. And then it's required with the state to have so many they're called master teachers. It doesn't mean that they necessarily have a master's degree, but they meet the qualifications and have the highest sort of level of education to meet that. And so at a place like CrossTown, for example, with our number of children, I think we're only required to have 5 or 6. We have 17, so we have very high qualified staff. We're very fortunate to have a grant to be able to pay them at the same rate that they would have if they were an elementary school teacher. And so you don't get that everywhere. And so we take a lot of pride in making sure that our teachers are up to date on the latest and greatest in childcare, because in any field it's always something new, something, or sometimes it's nice to just go back to the basics of safety and security too. And we do a lot of that with our staff. But in every classroom there are 2 teachers, and then we have a traveling teacher position. where they go and give breaks. We think that's important. Not every center is able to give the amount of breaks that we're able to give. Not that it's not difficult on us as administrators. Some days we're just praying that everyone is safe and well enough to come in, and how many people are on vacation today. You know, I tell my husband all the time, I go, if you don't go to work, he works in the sort of baking space, you know, the next day you just pick up your work, or maybe someone has to do a little bit of it. If they don't come in, we're out of ratio and someone has to go in, or a classroom can't open. And so we're really every morning like, okay, is there any call-ins? And our teachers do a really great job, but they're humans, and they need to be able to take time off too. A lot of them have their own children, and if their children are sick, they need to be able to support their children. And so even though I kind of joke that it's difficult, it's what I go back to in this profession is just they're expected to always be perfect, to always be on time. And to be there, and it's difficult when they're not.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, just working with like children's ministry over the years, or preschools and just other such stuff, I would imagine a morning where your text doesn't go off before 7 o'clock in the morning is a good morning.
That's right.
Nobody's sick,
Yes.
everybody's good, and you don't have to scramble to see what that day might be. Because life does happen in that way. So we have, okay, so what would happen if like places like CrossTown close their doors? I mean, again, we're seeing that. Places are closing their doors. And, you know, what would this world be like? What would Tulsa be like? Let's talk about Tulsa. If we didn't have these child care centers that were affordable, or do y'all have a wait list?
We do. We have a wait list.
People are wanting to get in. They need that 5 days a week kind of thing. So what would we lose if we didn't have, you know, places like CrossTown?
You know, I think being in Leadership Tulsa, you hear about all of the growth happening. I'm also was able to come back to Tulsa through Tulsa Remote, and so I know about all the folks coming into Tulsa. They wouldn't want to come into a place where they couldn't grow their family and feel that their children were going to be taken care of while they're working and trying to grow the city into what it wants to be. You'll see a decline in your neighborhoods. You know, we've had to change to, at CrossTown, as Kendall Whittier has changed to. Kendall Whittier is really a mixed income neighborhood as well. Whenever we did our Leadership Tulsa Day in North Tulsa, that was a real big buzzword too. I don't know if you went to the Housing Authority presentation, but she talked a lot about mixed income housing more so than just low income housing. There's still a need for low income housing, but they were really focusing on this mixed income. And I think that a place like CrossTown is a real foundation for a community. We're really fortunate in Kendall Whittier to also have Tulsa Educare and all of our child care homes as well, that we sort of work together to make sure the children in our community are taken care of, and that people want to be in this community. They want to come to Kendall Whittier, not just for you know, Circle Cinema and all the great businesses we have there, but to come and live in Kendall Whittier. And if you've got small children, you're going to want to know that your children are taken care of. And so I think you would see a decline in the growth that we've been having. I think you would see that really sort of stop. Because people eventually, whenever they start having families, they want to go where it's safe, and a lot of them will go back to where they, you know, started from in their community because they want to be around their village. And we create the village for people. We create that community space for folks and make it warm and inviting, so they do want to stay and raise their children here. I read something one time. I talked about the obvious truth that like life is better when you live close to people you like. That's right.
You know, and you know, I feel fortunate. You know, the church here is in Midtown. I live half a mile away. My kids go to school at Edison, which is a mile away, and so like I just have like this little world here that's like, oh, this is nice. I don't have this travel time, and like I see the people I want to see a lot of times, and it is just having a little village in the midst of a community and being able to extend beyond that is great. But to be able to go to a store and see the people that people and to be able to, drop off kids and see somebody you may see in the neighborhood or whatever it might be, that just creating that pocket that's there. So
and
you
also
came.
in the elementary school, I think the teachers, that I've spoken to, is they'll be able to tell you, we know that the children who have had child care experience and high quality child care experience, and if they're ready for school, and you see that, and it does make a difference for your elementary teachers too, and it just sort of keeps flowing upward whenever you have this good sort of foundation of child development.
Yeah, I do remember talking to different teachers, and they're like, we can tell when somebody has had some level of preschool or socials. I mean, that they're able to come in and they know how to sit in a circle. I don't have to teach them how to sit in a circle or whatever
That's
it might
right.
be. Walk down the hallway with a bubble in their mouth, and it's like, you can do this. Okay, good, you've made it.
Yeah, and you can get that from so many places. We're here for the folks who need full day childcare, but there's a lot of places and a lot of folks who they have other ways that they're socializing their children, and I said those children are going to be fine.
Yeah.
But we're really filling a needed gap, because there's not everyone who has access to that and the ability to be so flexible in their jobs.
Yep.
And so there's obviously a great need. We always have a waiting list. I know that my counterparts in the field, they have waiting lists. Whenever you look at the data from our city, there's kids out there. There's plenty of kids out there that there's not enough even childcare spots to fill the need that we have in Tulsa. And the fact that we see so many closing their doors is a little bit concerning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, that's news, and that's news to me. But I think it is, again, important to, okay, what does this mean, and how do we do? Are there things that could change legislatively or whatever that might be, or what does the community have to do to kind of rally around? Now now I'm kind of going to transition to your story a little bit. So you came here through Tulsa Remote. So how did you get to Tulsa?
So I'm actually from Tulsa.
So
I was
you're
one
from
of those
Tulsa.
lucky boomerangs
Okay.
that I was eligible to come back through Tulsa
like
Remote.
TPS or what
So
school?
I moved around a little bit growing up. So from Tulsa, born in St. Francis, right? And through, we moved around quite a bit.
Okay.
So the elementary school that I went to was Whittier Elementary, which isn't there anymore. Now it is a apartment complex, and it's right down the street from where I work, so it's fun to sort of drive by there.
Yeah, you said that was your childcare. Okay.
Yeah,
yes,
and so and then Lewis and Clark went there, and so I didn't go to high school here. So I went to high school in Chandler, Oklahoma.
Okay.
And then for my undergrad, I went over to Edmond, spent some time in the Oklahoma City area. My job out of college, I was offered two positions. One was to be the third grade teacher in the classroom where I had done my student teaching. That teacher was moving on to be a counselor. And I think I was a little overwhelmed when it's like she had all these years of things that she was giving me. And then I got offered also a job at the YMCA. I'd been working at the YMCA throughout college, doing their before and after school program. And honestly, YMCA paid a little bit more.
Okay.
And whenever you are fresh out of college, and they were opening up a new YMCA there and needed someone to do their youth and family programming.
Okay.
And so I did that, and it was a little bit of early child care, as in the drop-in, like I'm working out and I bring my kids and we have the drop-in care. And then I became a foster parent to my nephews whenever I was in Oklahoma City, and knew very early on that you need a village to have children. And so I moved back to Tulsa, and I stayed here, and I was with the YMCA in Owasso, and they built a new one in Hutcherson. So I went to North Tulsa at the Hutcherson YMCA, and we were a part of a program there called the Oklahoma Early Childhood Program, which is a state-funded program ran through CAP Tulsa. And so I worked with CAP Tulsa a lot. And then they had a position on that OECP team. And so I went to CAP Tulsa for about 12 or 13 years. And then during the pandemic, I went to the DC area, Alexandria, Virginia, and I worked for the National Head Start Association. And it was very quickly learned that no one was going back in the office anytime soon. And they had hired people from all over the country. And so we were like, let's go back to Oklahoma. Cost of living and our people are here, and we didn't really find our people there. You know, especially during the pandemic, it was hard to get out, and where I wasn't going into office meeting people either. And my husband got laid off too, and so it was just like, let's come back home. And I don't remember how I heard about Tulsa Remote, but I was like, well, let's see if I'm eligible. I work remote, and sure enough, I was.
That's
and
awesome.
It was such a fun time, and still is, to be a part of Tulsa Remote. I've known Tulsa my whole life, and to come back and to see parts of it that I had never known about, and to just, I felt so uncool. Everyone in Tulsa Remote, super cool. And I was just so impressed with the quality of people that were coming into Tulsa and what they were doing, and how they were falling in love with my city. That most people are like, what do you mean? Like, what's so great about Tulsa? And then whenever I see people saying that, I'm like, they don't get it. They're not tapped into what Tulsa Remote taps you into, to be able to see it. And so I was working remote here, and a colleague of mine from Cat Tulsa had said, "Did you hear about the opening over at CrossTown?" I'd known about CrossTown. I was their auditor for a few years, and I said, "Okay, I think I might be ready to jump into this executive director space." And so started that process, and that's where I landed a year and a half ago. So back in Tulsa, um, doing what I love to do in childcare. I've been in that space forever in some form, either in the school age or the early child care. And that's how I sort of landed back in Tulsa,
Okay.
working in childcare.
Full circle. Yeah. I hadn't really, I mean, I knew about Tulsa Remote, but I
Yeah.
had met people who had been through Tulsa Remote, and it was just kind of like this nebulous idea until we started Leadership Tulsa. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, there's quite a few Tulsa Remote people in that cohort. It's just been fascinating to me to, and then to hear people be like, we love Tulsa, and like,
I know.
and the number of people who like are, I mean, I don't know what the retention rate is. I'm sure somebody knows the retention rate,
Very impressive.
but that would be my guess. And then you think about what it is, the way that it's bringing stuff, and then people transitioning from a virtual job to some transitioning from a virtual job to a in-person community jobs. Again, that's just good all the way around. So you mentioned you working with children your whole life. Like, when did you think I want to be in education, or I want to be a teacher? Probably maybe when you were a kid. Like, when was the first time you thought this looks fun?
You know, it was high school, and I remember because there was a woman's league, or I don't remember the name of it, that was for teachers. And I remember being sort of selected as their person of the month and learning more about that. And there was just sometime, probably my junior year of high school, where it was, I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to be a third grade teacher. And I don't ever remember wanting to do something else. I was just sort of, and maybe that's how you are whenever you're that age. You're just sort of like living, going day by day, and like that step will eventually come, and not really sort of thinking through what does that look like whenever you're, doing it and older and out of college. And so I went to the what I feel is the best school in the state for that, and that's UCO. Some wonderful professors there. They have a wonderful education program there. And so yeah, that's what I was going to be, a third grade teacher,
Yeah.
until I wasn't.
And did you got
And then
offered
I
the
was a
third grade
never
teacher dice?
third grade teacher. I mean, I went the management route. Even today, I was giving a break in another classroom, and we're just chit chatting, and she was asking a little bit about my background, and she's like, "Oh, how long were you a teacher?" And I'm like, "Never." Um, but I'm a different kind of teacher as an administrator, and so I sort of went the management route of it. So I've not spent time in the classroom as sort of a full day teacher. It's more of supporting the folks who are doing it every day.
I enjoy my bathroom breaks too much. I feel that every person should spend a day in a classroom and realize how important it is, or how privileged you are to have a bathroom break at any time that you need to go to the bathroom, um, because you don't get that as a teacher. So, yeah.
My wife worked at Eugene Field for a few years,
Yeah.
and
So
it,
she
so yeah,
understands.
yeah, teacher bladder. I hadn't heard that term before, but I
Yeah.
thought
Mhm.
that was a thing. And so yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it
when
was.
they call the front desk, you've got less than 2 minutes to get down to their classroom. So they're if they're calling, you need to run.
You need to go.
Mhm.
You need to go. Okay, okay. Yeah. So this that you said some things just in kind of your story. So you moved around some. Um, what was and so kind of being. I mean, I moved around some this kid too, so I have my own experiences. But like, what was it like to be the new kid? It sounds like
Yeah.
frequently. What
Yeah.
does and it sounds like you've also mentioned some different teachers and educators or
Mhm.
people who noticed you.
Yeah.
So what was that noticing like being new in a
Mhm.
place?
So we were I grew up in generational poverty, and so we grew up in a lot of like HUD homes, and sometimes in HUD homes, when things break down or there's a disagreement with the landlord, you just kind of pick everything up and leave. And so we had to move around a lot for those reasons. And so I spent a lot of time in North Tulsa and East Tulsa, living there. And you develop, I think, some socialization skills pretty quickly that I'm sure my husband wishes I didn't develop because I just talk to people. And so you do a little bit of that. I think it developed a little bit of a dry sense of humor in that, and where you also, I think I developed a sort of like sense of calmness sometimes that sometimes can frustrate people because I'm never really here.
That
And I think that's because you learn to sort of sit back and observe and not sort of draw too much attention to things. And you learn sort of a little bit more of empathy towards things. So I have, I think, a little more understanding of what people are going through. Sometimes, whenever you take those personality tests, sometimes that can mean that I don't make decisions pretty quickly. Yep. Because I'm sort of observing and taking everything in. So being a new person, in a school setting and in a setting at all, you I felt like teachers understood that. Teachers know what's going on. They pick up things
Yeah.
pretty quickly. And there was a situation whenever we were younger where a teacher said some things probably aren't going on right at home. And so they had brought in law enforcement, and a teacher took us into their home and said, "We're going to take care of you. We're going to feed you. You're going to stay the night here." And the older you, I was in elementary school. I was probably third or fourth grade, and so that was the first time I was placed in a different home than my home with my family. And so we moved in with aunts and grandparents. And then I went back home for a little bit. And then I had an aunt that said, you don't really know, I think, the full story when you're that age. So in my head, like, I don't know the reason why I went back because I came home for a little bit. And then after that, I stayed with an aunt who then raised me through middle school and high school. And I think really getting out of that environment and seeing what was out there, I think changed the trajectory of my life. And I think about that at Crosstown too, is this mixed income that we're doing is it really lifts everybody up in the community to be able to see that and to have access to the same thing. Whether you are private pay or subsidy, you don't know when you're in the classroom. The parents don't know, the kids don't know, the teachers don't know. Everyone is just getting the same experience, and I think that really helps folks that you don't feel that you're sort of segmented away in these places.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Thanks.
Exposure is important.
Exposure is.
Yeah.
I'll tell a story and then I'll ask a question. So when my wife was Eugene Field, she was a librarian, and I would go and people are like, "Who is that? Is that your
Yeah.
boyfriend?" And because that's what most people saw at
Yeah.
that school was boyfriend, or their mom had a boyfriend.
Mhm.
He's like, "No, that's my husband." And I realized like just part of what I could offer was that I love my wife, and that's what I could offer that community was just being present and that, just giving them exposure to something that would be different. It was interesting to me that you said about third or fourth grade and you wanted to be a third grade teacher. I think there
Yep.
could be something there.
Yep.
Third grade teacher or fourth grade teacher took you in. Like,
That's right.
this is somebody made me feel safe in a
That's
chaotic
right.
time
That's good.
provided.
True.
And so what a gift that would be. And obviously talking about family of origin and stuff, I know it can be kind of hard and painful. So but feel free to have to talk about these
Yeah.
things. But I mean, yeah, you mentioned generational poverty, and you're out of that there. And so you kind of credit sort of that stability environment that you have with your aunt who exposed you to a new world. For people who didn't grow up in that, I mean, I grew up fairly like middle class. Um, what's different about poverty mindset? What's different about kind of that for even our kids today who are doing some of that versus just what would be a typical, which is not typical sort of thing. I like to say, well, I heard somebody say, everybody thinks their childhood is normal until the moment they realize it isn't.
That's true.
And then I also think that all childhoods are lies, because there's always stuff you don't find out the truth of,
That's
either because it's not age appropriate or because you misunderstood or misinterpreted it from there. So I said a lot. Let me go back to that. Yeah. So kind of poverty mindset. What was that? What are just some of those things that are just might be some differences that you
Yeah.
noticed?
It's, there's always things that sort of like pop up in your head that are just, it just immediately takes you back to that moment. I think you're right. Whenever you're in the moment, I didn't necessarily feel like I was poor. I played with my friends. I had friends. We had food. That there were a couple of things where we didn't always have electricity, or I would go to a friend's house to play, and my Barbies were in a crate. And whenever I went to a friend's house, there was a moment where a cockroach came out of my crate. And I remember the response of the adult that I was like, oh, okay, so that's not supposed to happen. But in my home, that was like at night when you go into the kitchen, a very normal thing to live in that environment. And it's interesting because even today, I don't feel like my mom is dirty. Her house is always clean. But it was not having the again a HUD home. I'm sure it has changed a lot since I was young, and the inspections on the homes are a lot different. But making sure that those kinds of things were taken care of. I also remember that our Christmases were provided by the Christmas tree things, and how that was whenever I was a child, I didn't associate it with it because toys are toys wherever you're going. But as an adult, I can look back and remember whenever I mom took me with her because she didn't have anyone to watch me. And so we got to go in the room and pick a couple of toys. And then when we were leaving, there was a bike and it had my name on it. So I got the bike and I knew it was mine. And I'm like, well, now you have to go to it because I see my name on that bike. And so there were a lot of really just great memories. But whenever you sort of look back at it, I also think about, even though I don't remember all of the reasons, there were some physical things I don't want to get into. But one of the things I remember is it had something to do with marijuana. Marijuana is legal now, and I wonder what would happen if it was today and it wasn't, like, if it wasn't illegal back then, would I have remained with my family? And would that have been a good thing or a bad thing? And would my stepdad had would his life have been different if he wasn't put in a situation to where he was doing that? And so sometimes I think about just like the timing of things and how that works. But I'm really grateful that I did have family members that were able to support me and my siblings that were also in the same situation as me. But that stuff, it stays with you. It doesn't go away when you're in a job that now pays differently. So I am an executive director, and I know I get paid well for a nonprofit and for what I'm doing. That all of the lessons that I've had to learn on the way, I've had to do, and there's still mistakes in that. So, sir, that you make because you don't have people that you can call on and say, well, what about this? What would you do in this situation? And so, like, whenever I was in college, I took out way too many student loans, things like that, that if I had maybe some family members who could have showed me a little bit differently on some ice, but none of my family members had been to college.
Yeah.
And so they don't have that sort of experience to be able to share that with me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well, no, thank you again. Thank you for sharing it. And I do think that again, our history, and it's fascinating. One thing you said to me so early is like, developmentally, the most important years are 1, 2, 3.
That's right.
And again, from what you shared a little bit, year 1, 2, 3 was probably challenging. Uh, and yet, even if somebody has a tough start, doesn't mean that they're finished or
right.
destined.
That's right.
And the same thing, you're gonna have to have a great start doesn't mean you're finished is destined in a different way. But we do, but in these things to be able to do it. When did you, and this, I don't know how I want to ask this question, but when did you feel like I know who I am? And I'm really feel good about that. Like I've went through these ups and downs and these, I've understood my history. When did
Yeah.
that like,
I don't know, am I there yet? Yeah, I think it kind of comes in waves. I think as we get older, you really start to think about your life, where you've been, where you are, and where you're going, sort of a situation, and what impact do I want to have? Am I having an impact?
yeah,
Um, I think that there it's tied to sort of financial stability for me. Is like, okay, I can I I have enough money that if something were to break, I could fix it. If my car were to break, I could fix it.
yeah,
It's, there's um this social media thing that see pop up every now and then. It's like, if I won the lottery, this is how you would know. And it's like, um, I am getting the fries with my Arby's sandwich, or I'm getting all four tires changed at the same time. It's, and so those were the kinds of things, because whenever you grow up in poverty, you sort of, it's that there's just like this one point where it turns around, where if you make a mistake, 'cause you're still gonna make mistakes, it's gonna be okay, because you're making enough that it's not, you don't have to choose between rent and car anymore. It's between, um, you know, uh, dog surgery or not, kind of a
yeah,
thing. And you sort of turn this corner of, I can do rent and pay my car, and I can have a dog. And kind of a thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and it does. I mean, again, I just think about the complexity of life and all of these things. So yeah, what all four tires.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. A way of thinking. Of the still.
I still don't like paying for tires.
Oh no, no. Well, and of course, my family. I came from a water family at dinner.
Yeah.
So it's like everybody just get water. That's what we did.
Yeah.
So also sometimes we'll go out to eat as a bail-in off to water night, boys.
Yeah, we call it special drink. Are you ordering a special drink? People are like, I just want my alcohol drink something. I'm talking about Coke Zero or Diet Coke. Are we ordering special drinks today?
Right. Yes. So it is. Yeah. So not worry about that. And of course, one of the ways you get to not worry about that is you worry about it for a little while to build up that thing. I was talking to somebody one time that just different, like kind of being a poverty mindset. I think like Ruby Payne's work. I don't know if you're familiar with her, like poverty mindset work versus other things, but she uh one of the stories I remember from Principal at Eugene Field, actually, she said she was helping me to understand. She said, some of our families, they'll get their tax returns about that time, get tax return, and they'll go lease a car because they have money to go lease a car. We'll drive that car around for 4 months, and then they can't make the payments anymore, so the car goes away.
That's right.
And I mean, again, in a mindset, in a middle class mindset, I mean, oh no, but I mean, again, what she was telling me in a poverty mindset, it's like they'll look back and be like, wasn't that a great 4 months? When we had this car and we use that. And so I do think this exposure, this opportunities, that there's a bigger world out there, that there are things, and also that I've looked back when I meet people who've had experiences with poverty, it's like they're really not. I mean, they have different experiences, but and they see the world differently, but they're people, who love their kids, who love their families, who are doing the best that they can, who oftentimes are, we've tried to help families. I mean, the systems are not working for working people.
Sure.
And it's so hard to move forward. There's some folks in the church that we've been doing some stuff with, and it's like, there is just roadblock after roadblock after roadblock
There is.
after roadblock, that
And if you're not at that level financially to be able to get through that, it's just setting you back. Transportation's so important. Transportation and housing, right? I had a coworker I worked with previously that car broke down and she didn't have credit or whatever to get no one would sell her a car. So she was doing a car rental at such an astronomical cost. She's like, I can afford I'm doing this, right? I'm paying them every week this ridiculous amount that basically she could have 4 car payments for this. So she's like, I know I can make a car payment, but because of my previous history, I'm not able to get through that. So it's just like, man, there's just one little push. I don't know when my push happened, but there was just like one push that got me through that I wouldn't have to be in that situation anymore. But if she didn't have cars, she couldn't get to work. She had children. And so she had to pay those prices. And I just think about what she could have been doing with that money and instead of, paying those car rental prices.
Yeah, and often it is. I mean, when I was talking to some folks doing podcasts about the unhoused, is it's a medical emergency, it's a transportation situation, and then that cascade of stuff that just a little bit. And something they had a friend, if they had a family member, if they had a little bit of extra money somewhere to be able to overcome those things,
So,
and to know it's possible. So
and if you bring it back to sort of childcare here, is we don't want to be that another thing that you have to worry about in your life. It is my children are safe. I have they could be there. I can work. I have people who understand me, people who are in their corner. And I think about that all the time with our families whenever we're frustrated or whatever, is we don't know what happened before they got there. We remind our teachers a lot. We don't know what happened before they came and picked up their kid. We don't know what's gonna happen when they leave. And so it's important for us to be really mindful of the language we're using with families and being firm with our rules and our policies, but also having empathy for our families and what their struggles are.
yeah. And I think that is, there's the humanness in the midst of that, and boundaries are humanness as well. To be able to do that, knowing to balance. That's great. So
Yeah.
to balance that. Oh, this is we have to go home to our families.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
so if it's 5:30, it's
That's right.
5:30.
Like we also have families. They
Yeah.
got to come back tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. and be ready and make beach bottles for everybody. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, again, it's just fascinating. I like to say, we meet people in the middle of their stories, and I don't know if you ever watched the show Lost.
A little bit, yes. I know the premise.
Yeah. So one of my favorite things that they did storytelling wise was they would talk about what was happening on the island, and they always focused on a character, and then they would flash back to some previous life.
Yeah.
And like in their previous story, it helped you make sense of why they were doing the thing that they were doing right then. And so that's kind of again what I like to do is like, oh, it makes total sense to me that you went to this you went to this preschool, went around different places, had these challenges, and you've come back to being in that same neighborhood to kids who are in your situation and in other situations, to be able to create this hospitable environment, to being like, you're safe here, you're well cared for, we're going to help you to have this great start. That's really cool. So makes sense to me. All right, I like to finish these with just some top of mind questions. So just whatever's on top of mind, just not. So what is your favorite place to eat in Tulsa?
Favorite place to eat in Tulsa. I just recently went to the farm bar and I really enjoyed that. So you got a ticket for Christmas. So I decided to go back and try their tasty. So that's what's on top of mine.
Part of our okay, never been yet. What somebody's visiting from out of town? Where do you take?
Oh, we love the Silbrook. So probably the Silbrook. And then maybe a place downtown. We lived downtown for a while. We really enjoyed it. We, go to maybe McNally's. And um, Yeah, I would say I think we would take them to lunch. I might take them to Meadow Road Market. My husband's not a fan because to him a market is like fresh food, like a farmer's market.
Okay.
So it's really just the name. Where he's like, it's not.
Okay.
And to get a little variety. To see the district over there too. So yeah, maybe take them to Trencher's, get a sandwich.
Yeah. Okay, you mentioned your husband's a baker.
Mhm. Yeah, he does fraud analyst for like credit cards. So whenever folks are like, "I didn't pay for this," he digs into it to see if there's any fraud there. Oh yeah, yeah. I know he has all the tips and tricks. Well, what's not to do? Yeah. He's the guy who locks his card and unlocks it when he uses it because he knows that fraud happens all the time. So he literally locks his card when he and then unlocks it. So then I get text messages of your bar is being unlocked. Oh,
Wow, I didn't know that. Well, I think it's a bit
yeah,
option, but that
yeah.
now that kind of scares me a little
I
bit. Well,
know.
I've come to the place where it's just like my information is out there and so many things.
If people want it, if people want to look at our account, let them. Have fun with that.
Yeah. There's not as much in there as you would.
Yeah. Well, and also it's sort of, well, isn't that your job then? If something does happen, I'll be taken care of, so I'm not worried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what? If you weren't living in Tulsa, you're not allowed to live in Tulsa. Where do you live? Where do you live?
Um, I think we go back to the East Coast. I think we really enjoyed that. Maybe a Boston area.
Okay.
Sneaky fruit. Yes, syrup farm in Vermont. Syrup farm. Yeah, in Vermont. Okay. Little maple syrup. I've been tapping into the tree. I know some maple syrup.
Watch West Wing and Jed Bartlett's very particular about New Hampshire syrup. So apparently that's a thing up there. So interesting. Okay, yeah. What is a show, a book, a podcast? What's something that has influenced you lately?
I am enjoying Amy Poehler's podcast. She's fun. And you know, the book that I started and CCHEs or that we're reading about it. It's about the name of it where they're talking about this generation's relying on uh screens.
The Anxious Generation.
There you go.
Yeah.
I tried so hard.
Yeah.
And the information was good. And a lot of people are saying it's good. So maybe I'll pick it back up. But I'm one of those people when I read a book, I give the book away. So I already gave it away.
Okay.
And so I have to get to half the hour or something there. The shows I watch are all garbage. So I probably wouldn't recommend those. Just, sometimes at the end of the day, you just need to unwind. But there, let's see here. There is some shows that are on right now. My husband's a video gamer.
Okay.
Fallout.
Okay.
So I've been watching Fallout. It's a little boring. And there's another show that's out right now that there's still high potential, and it is the actress is from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and she's a genius, and she's helping police officers solve crimes. And so she's just really looking at the details and that whole like using all of her brain kind of a thing to put things together that I think is really interesting. Because to see all of that, a little murder crime, it's when they be like a murder crime scene too. So, so it's a little bit of that and kind of puzzles solving too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Dr. Rogers loves to watch all the murders.
Yeah. I'll watch a couple of them, but then sometimes my husband's like, "Why are you watching sad shows? Like, you guys stop watching these sad shows." And sometimes, I just watched the one We Were the Lucky Ones, and it was about Nazi Germany and a family that had horrific things happen to them, but they all survived, so they're considered the lucky ones. I don't recommend watching it unless you're just ready to have a full meltdown. So he's like, you gotta stop watching that.
Yeah.
Go watch the little more trash TV. Those were some heavy episodes. Yeah.
That's funny. My wife and I would watch The Traders.
Yeah.
And it was like, this is so dumb.
Yes.
This is so like dramatic
Oh yeah.
and okay.
And then
Yes.
you can't look away.
And then you can't look away. Yeah, yeah. It's like this is just made for TV. Get this, and we watch Survivor too. And so it's always survival people that have been on one. We haven't watched current season, but it's just
I love Survivor.
yeah.
Yeah, Z wouldn't last hardly ever. Well, they're first of all, I couldn't do anything heights related, so we'd be out big heights.
What is your favorite saying?
There's one that I have in my phone right now that I thought about us, and when I took this position as executive director, because I worry that did I make the sort of right decision? I feel that I did, but it was the one where um, it's better to admit that you walked through the wrong door than to stay in the wrong room. And so I was sort of like, am I able to do this job and make the impact that I want to make? Am I ready for it? Am I feeling like I'm in a good sort of mental health space because of how important this role is and this job is? And so I thought about that for a long time, making sure that I know, am I did I go through the right door, and am I staying for the right reasons? And so I sort of checked myself of like where it's kind of bringing back to the first question you asked is, finding your favorite memory or moment. And so that's why I really try to find those favorite moments, because so much can be so daunting. I mean, yeah, families come in and they say, "Hey, this is going on in my life." And now I know it, and it's a part of, my job, and just me as a person sort of take that in. And sometimes that's really hard, to take in all of these stories that you hear all the time.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of fundraising too, and so also trying to make folks aware of what we're doing, and really highlighting that the parents are doing really well with the best they have, but it's everything around them that really needs to be lifted up and supported, and making sure that that story is getting out there in a way that folks know what's going on in the childcare world, and know that we're doing the best we can with what we have, and we're pretty successful in that, but it's still going to take us whole community to continue to lift us up so the community can stay strong. So,
Yeah. Yeah. What's the most unusual item in your house?
most unusual item in my house. We don't really collect a lot of things. I grew up with a collector, so I think a little bit of that is I don't like to collect too much. The strangest thing, oh man, we used to have a block house, this black, like, marble block house. For some reason, we got it whenever we were on our honeymoon, and that and a rain stick. And we, before we left to go to VC, we downsized a lot of our stuff. So my friend has it at her house. And so every time I go visit, she just this little bobcat over there. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
That's interesting.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. I like to end with this question. So tell me about a time recently when you felt most fully loved.
Most fully loved. Um, you know, probably every time around my husband. I'm glad this isn't a conversation about Matt, because I just get all blubbery when it comes to Matt. But I think I feel really loved and appreciated by Matt every day. So that makes it really nice. Wherever you go home and there's someone there that accepts all your flaws and can laugh with you, who understands, and we share a lot of the same interests and opinions on the world. So sometimes in the business and nonprofit, you can't always share those things out loud. So to be able to come home and sort of say it and not feel like I'm going to be attacked, or that I have to like overly explain why I'm feeling something,
Yeah.
is really nice. So I'd say every day, loved
Okay.
by him. So yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
This has been really good. And so
Yeah,
people
I'm
want
glad
to.
that I can't ask you all these questions.
That's
but-
okay. That's all right. So we could have
Yeah.
maybe lunch at Leadership Tulsa
Yes.
address. You can ask me.
I'll
all
start
sorts of
my
questions.
own podcast, and I'll be like, tell me what's what's the strangest thing in your home?
Oh, that's a great question. We have pictures of grandmothers My wife, she wanted old pictures of my grandmothers when they were young.
I love that.
So I think that is very strange. So my wife is more the collector that I am.
Your wife is like a grandmother, because to me, that's what grandmothers have in their homes. Like I go into my mom's home or my grandma's home, and it's all old pictures.
Yeah.
I
So,
love that.
so yeah, and like for my wife, her Meemaw passed away just over a year ago now, and so she had already done that. But like her Meemaw was her safe person, and
Yeah.
so like that was, I think, like one of her ultimate goals in life is to be her Meemaw, and so I do. So you say that, and that makes me think of like, yeah, these pictures that I just thought, I said, you want a picture? You asked my mom for a picture of my grandmother when she was young? That's strange, but that's wonderful. So
We only have one picture in our home, and that's no, two. One of me and my dad, he passed away, and then one of me and Matt. And those are the only pictures we have in our home that aren't like, random art pieces and stuff. That I love going to my mom's house and just see rows of pictures every year. It's interesting that I enjoy it at her house, but at my place, I think it's I don't want to hang this stuff. That's
yeah,
what it is.
okay,
Someone else
okay.
come over and hang all of the pictures.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. Well, good. Well, thank you. Yeah, this has been wonderful. So that was Christina. I'm again so thankful that we get to take this journey through Leadership Tulsa together. I hope you learn more about what's going on in this childcare world, and how we can just being aware of it, and also the importance that those early years make. And then again, I so appreciated her story. I want to tell you what's next, because we have something that's exciting next as well. Is I did a conversation with Amy Emerson. Amy is the leader of Hope Driven Parenting. It's all about the science of hope and how that portrays and relays to parenting. And so we have a grand conversation. That's next on the Tulsa Neighbor Podcast.